Hello, my name is Andrew Lang, and today I'm going to be talking about why ACT and SAT scores should not be required for college admission. So, standardized testing, the ACT was brought around 1926, and the ACT around 1959. Both tests were put into place because people thought that they would be a good representation and a good reflection of a student's knowledge and ability in the classroom, and they thought that it would be a good way to measure that, and it would be a way for schools to go about their admissions process with students. So the overview. Today we're going to be talking about how the standardized testing is not an accurate evaluation of students' knowledge and ability in the classroom, how tests are completely aside from a student's actual hard-earned grades that they have accumulated over the course of the semester, and how no student should be held to the same standard as another student. So the first point is that the ACT and SAT is not a good reflection of a student's ability in the classroom, both mentally and physically. One of the biggest reasons is that outside factors such as ADD, ADHD, and other learning disabilities can really affect the outcome of a test, and that's just not a good reflection of how well they performed in the classroom over the semester. The next point is how a single test cannot represent a student's ability. It's just, there's so many outside factors like the ADHD and ADD that students can't really overcome, and they're not anyone's fault that they have these disabilities in the classroom, but it's true, and sitting down at a table and taking a test for that long can be truly stressful and very difficult on the mind for some of these students. Another thing is that tests are completely aside from a student's overall grades. The grades that students get on SAT and ACT just aren't a good reflection of their test scores, and quite frankly, the topics that are on the SAT and ACT are things you can study through, like courses, like testing courses, but can you really test for certain topics like you can in the classroom or even at college? In college, you study what you learn, and on the SAT and SAT, you really don't. You're just kind of thrown in front of the test. Another thing is stress. Stress can play a huge factor. I know it did for me personally. Stress is the end-all be-all of a grade, especially on a standardized test. And last thing is, it is true, sitting in front of a test for that long with so many sections, and your mind just gets going racing about the next thing, it's very hard to concentrate when you have something like a learning disability especially. It's hard to concentrate on one thing at a time. So that can be very difficult for many students. And the last thing is that no student should be compared to one another, and I feel like the SAT and ACT is a terrible representation of that, and both tests really do kind of compare students, and students compare their grades, and they can feel not as good about their grade and such like that. You know, we always say that no student should be compared to one another, but yet we give the same exact standardized tests to all students, no matter their abilities in the classroom or their learning disabilities and things like that. So it's kind of, in my opinion, it's very, what's the word? It's very opposite to what they say, and it's just not a good way. Varying test scores, you know, there's a lot of grades that students can get, and varying test scores are just not a good representation of a student's ability in the classroom.